Hello everyone and welcome back to the Dungeon Learner's Guide. Today we've got another of our daily Pride Month decks. This is deck number 18 and it's titled Pauper Partners. And what we're doing is we are building a commander deck for Magic the Gathering using two non-partner commanders, working with a budget of $100 or less and using this as a way to celebrate the diversity of the LGBTQ+ community for all of June. So today we are building a Pauper commander deck because I wanted to do something a little bit different. And so what that means is our two commanders for today, Adeliz the Cinderwind and Balmor Battlemage Captain, are both uncommon creatures, but every other card in our entire deck, including lands, are all commons. That means that they were at some point printed at common, and we have nothing at a higher rarity than that. However, despite all of that, this is still a very powerful and aggressive deck, so if you're looking for something cheap, efficient, and easy to put together, this might be the deck for you. So starting off with our commanders, we have Adeliz the Cinderwind, which is 1 blue-red for a 2/2 legendary creature human wizard. She has flying and haste, and whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, wizards you control get +1/+1 until the end of turn. Balmor, Battlemage Captain, very similar, a blue and a red for a 1/3 legendary creature bird wizard. He's got flying, and whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, creatures you control get +1/+0 and gain trample until the end of turn. So if we have both of our commanders in play and we cast an instant or sorcery, all of our creatures get +1/+0 and trample, and all of our wizards get +1/+1, meaning we can very quickly turn a board of relatively small creatures into lethal threats. So with that in mind, let's talk about some of our themes for this deck and break down how we're meant to function. So the very first theme, you may have already been able to guess it, is wizards. We want to make sure that just about every creature we have is a wizard, so that way when we cast a spell with both of our commanders in play, they're getting +2/+1 and trample for every single spell we cast. And another great way that we can build around the wizard theme is with Stony Brook Banneret, which is 1 and a blue for a 1/1 merfolk wizard. It's got Island Walk, and merfolk and wizard spells you cast cost 1 less to cast, giving us the ability to kind of flood the board with wizards and then turn that flood of wizards into a massive powerhouse with our instants and sorceries. Moving on to our second theme, that is of course instants and sorceries. And so we want to have cards that benefit us for casting instants and sorceries. We've already talked about Adeliz and Balmor, but we also have cards like Murmuring Mystic, which is 3 and a blue for a 1/5 human wizard. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, create a 1/1 blue bird illusion creature token with flying. Now, unfortunately, those birds will not be wizards, so they will not get the boost from Adeliz, but they will still get the boost from Balmor. So it's still a powerful effect, and a great way for us to really flood the board and just kind of smack our opponents until they lose the game. Moving on to our final theme of the deck, this one is going to be cantrips. So we have cards like Crash Through, which is 1 red mana for a sorcery, creatures you control gain trample until end of turn, and most importantly, draw a card. Now you'll notice that if we have Balmor in play, Crash Through actually doesn't do anything because Balmor will give trample and then Crash Through will also give trample. But it's really in here because it draws a card. Our main goal with these spells is to cast our cheap and efficient spells that then replace themselves, giving us the ability to basically cast 1 spell per mana that we have, give our creatures +1 or +2 depending on their creature type, and just kind of go from 0 to 100 in 1 turn. And cards like Crash Through are a great way for us to do that. That, though, brings us to the end of our themes for today. And the next thing we're going to have to do is talk about some key cards. And these are cards that really synergize with our deck, are kind of the MVPs of the deck, the cards we want to see the most. So starting off, our first key card is going to be Gutter Snipe. And Gutter Snipe, probably one of the best win conditions in the entire deck, is 2 and a red for a 2/2 Goblin Shaman. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, Gutter Snipe deals 2 damage to each opponent. So if we can storm off with a bunch of our 1 mana cantrips, say we cast 5 or 6 in one turn, we are then doing 5 or 6 different instances of 2 damage to each opponent, dealing 10 to 12 damage to each opponent, and putting us in a position where their life totals are probably now low enough that the buffs from Adeliz and Balmor can close out the game. Moving on to our second key card, this one is Fists of Flame. And Fists of Flame is one of my favorite cards in this deck because it is 1 and a red for an instant that says draw a card, and until end of turn, target creature gains trample and gets +1/+0 for each card you've drawn this turn. Since a lot of our spells are cantrip effects that draw cards, or are spells that just naturally draw cards, like that is the effect that they do, it's not unlikely that we can cast Fists of Flame to give a creature +10/+0 until the end of turn, putting us in a position where we can kind of just one-shot someone out of the game, almost out of nowhere. So Fists of Flame, very powerful, and the fact that it's an instant is absolutely absurd, because we can attack with our entire board, wait until our opponents block, and then we can choose the best creature to target with it. Finally though, we get to our last key card, and this one is Treasure Cruise, probably a very obvious choice for most important cards, considering it's banned in multiple formats. But Treasure Cruise, 7 and a blue for a sorcery that has Delve and draw 3 cards. Most of the time when we cast Treasure Cruise, we will be casting it for a single blue mana because we can delve away 7 cards out of our graveyard, and 1 blue mana to draw 3 cards is an absolutely absurd rate because that's just an ancestral recall. That's something that is way too powerful for a Pauper commander deck, but it's something that is going to be incredibly strong here because it helps trigger Fists of Flame, it triggers Gutter Snipe, it triggers Balmor, Adeliz, all of these different things, plus we're drawing 3 cards to replace it and essentially putting ourselves in a position where we can continue storming off, continue doing a ton of damage, and probably just win the game. So those are all of our key cards for today. The next thing I want to do for this deck tech, of course, is take a look at some cool interactions in the deck. These are cards that synergize really well with each other, but in a lot of cases are just fun cards that I want to highlight. So the first pair of cards that I want to talk about is Demand Answers and Revolutionist. So Demand Answers, 1 and a red for an instant. As an additional cost to cast this spell, sacrifice an artifact or discard a card, then draw 2 cards. Again, a great way for us to keep refilling our hand, keep casting spells, keep doing more, but it's even better with Revolutionist, which is 5 and a red for a 3/3 human wizard. When it enters the battlefield, return target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand, and it has Madness for 3 and a red. So rather than spending 6 total mana on Revolutionist, we can actually spend 6 total mana on Demand Answers and Revolutionist by discarding the Revolutionist to the Demand Answers, getting an instant or sorcery back from our graveyard, and then still drawing 2 cards, also putting the Revolutionist in play. So that can be a very powerful chain of events that essentially puts 3 additional cards into our hand, gets a creature into play, and unfortunately, even though you can't get Demand Answers back with Revolutionist, we do have plenty of other spells that will also be a huge benefit to get back and cast again. So, with all that being said, let's move on to our second cool interaction. This time, we're going to talk about Razzle Dazzler and Pirate's Pillage. So Razzle Dazzler, 1 and a blue for a 1/2 human wizard. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, put a +1/+1 counter on Razzle Dazzler, and it can't be blocked this turn. This is already very powerful with Adeliz and Balmor. Since it is a wizard, it will get a ton of buffs just by casting multiple spells, and then once we've cast our second one, it can't be blocked, so an opponent has to be taking that damage. But it's even better with cards like Pirate's Pillage, which is 3 and a red for a sorcery. As an additional cost to cast this spell, discard a card, then draw 2 cards and create 2 treasure tokens. The reason that this is going to be a very good card with Razzle Dazzler is it gives us an almost guaranteed chance to cast a second spell that turn. It's giving us 2 mana back, which is very powerful, and it's having us draw 2 cards. So with Pirate's Pillage, we can probably guarantee we're going to get another spell to cast, and even if it's something like using the 2 treasures to cast Balmor, it's still going to trigger the Razzle Dazzler and do something a little bit above and beyond. Anyway though, that is the end of our cool interaction, so the very last piece of this deck tech is to take a look at the price of the deck. And since this is a Pauper deck, you can actually buy the entire deck, including basic lands, for $19.83, less than a $20 bill. And the most expensive card in the deck is a whopping $1.45 for Shadow Rift. Shadow Rift, 1 blue mana for an instant. Target creature gains Shadow until the end of turn, draw a card. So again, a cantrip style effect, but most importantly, it actually gives something Shadow, which means it cannot be blocked unless our opponents have a creature with Shadow, which is very unlikely to happen. Shadow is not a common mechanic at all. So it basically gives one of our creatures unblockable, draws a card, triggers our effects, and then we probably win the game. So obviously, if you needed to trim on budget, I guess you could cut out Shadow Rift. That would make it, what, $18 instead of $19? But, you know, I would recommend keeping it in. I don't think that's going to hurt the budget too much. Anyway though, that is officially the end of our deck tech for today, so thank you all so much to everybody for watching. Thank you to all of our patrons and channel members, everyone who goes above and beyond to support our channel, and of course, thank you to everyone who has liked the video and subscribed to the channel. You're all amazing. I love it. We're trying to hit 2,000 subscribers. I would love it if you could help us get there. But other than that, I hope you all have had a wonderful Pride Month so far. I hope the rest of it continues to be amazing, and I will see you all on the other side of the Dungeon Learner's Guide.